What's happening with KSI? After looking to make his return to the ring twice in the last year and pulling out of two back-to-back fights, most recently against Dylan Dennis, it seems like that fight is now not getting rescheduled, as it looks like KSI might actually just never fight again. So it seems like the KSI situation keeps getting worse.
And by the way, we're Punch Talk and are bringing you daily combat sports videos, so if you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to help support the channel. So honestly, things have been going rough lately. Since the return of KSI in 2022, his boxing career, if you want to call it that, has been riddled with pullouts, has been riddled with bad matchmaking, not the greatest fights, whether it's his opponents pulling out, whether it's him pulling out, whether it's events getting canceled left and right, whether it's dates being moved, whatever it is. Now two back-to-back Misfits events, Misfits 21 and Misfits 22, have both been postponed. It doesn't look like that KSI versus Dylan Dennis fight is going to get rescheduled at all. Dylan Dennis has an upcoming fight against Tony Ferguson in the GFL May 25th, and KSI has been talking about how much this situation has really affected him and how it feels like he's been so unlucky with his boxing career. But it seems like right now he's not too interested with boxing. It didn't seem like when he booked that 2v1 tag team match against Anthony Taylor and Slim, he really cared to promote it or had any excitement for it. It felt like DAZN just wanted a pay-per-view on Misfits and they just needed KSI, and honestly, it feels like Misfits can't really survive without KSI because that's really how they started. That's how they got their first original backing, and without KSI, without that big name, without that YouTube boxing crowd and audience, there's just not that much interest to see the likes of Idris Virgo versus Ty Mitchell on just a random Misfits card. It honestly doesn't look great, and it seems like he's even contemplating retirement now. He doesn't really know if he'll ever fight again, and just a whole mess of situations going down back to back to back. It seems like KSI is losing interest for boxing. It seems like his heart isn't in it too much anymore. He recently responded to a Reddit post that pretty much was critiquing his whole career, talking about how the matchmaking just hasn't been up to par, calling out the influence and his team and his management not taking the best fights possible to move KSI's boxing career forward. And KSI responded to that saying, "Thank you, I needed this." So it just seems like this whole boxing thing for KSI hasn't really been working out in the last couple of years, and I don't even know if he should keep going.
Yeah, honestly, I think the issues with KSI's boxing career has been long-standing at this point, and in general, his heart just doesn't seem into boxing anymore. And honestly, I think it's truly been that way for a very long time. You could honestly even go all the way back to the Logan Paul 2 fight. When he won that fight, that was his big moment, him surpassing the biggest goals, and there was really only one other potential there that could even overdo that and probably would only excite him to keep on boxing with his full heart in it, and that would be the Jake Paul fight. And partly he starts Misfits boxing. At first it's a huge success, he gets all these influencers, he's promoting the card, and it seems to be going well with the mindset of fighting Jake Paul at some point. But as time goes on and both of their paths seem to diverge quite a bit, KSI has started fighting some of these more random guys like the Dylan Dennises, like the scheduled tag team fighting, and it seems like Misfits boxing has unfortunately not been really able to grow any homemade stars in the scene that would allow them to survive without KSI fully, still be able to reach some of the heights that a KSI card could do without having him need to fight there. There was a huge possibility of maybe some of the likes of Salt Poppy and some other guys, but unfortunately I feel like some of their fights were maybe mismanaged and they took an L and derailed their hype, and now you're left with only KSI, who doesn't have his heart into it anymore because he's not getting his one true goal of fighting Jake Paul. So it feels like there's just been a huge hole left in there. It seems like that Jake Paul fight will never happen. I think KSI understands that, and that's why he really doesn't see any more future in the boxing world, because it was never a point for him to kind of go down that Jake Paul route of fighting some of these MMA fighters, eventually build his way up to get some big fights. He never saw that as his goal in boxing, and now with him possibly retiring boxing, honestly you'd gotta think that's probably his best bet at this point. I feel like he's just been obligated to keep on fighting because otherwise Misfits seems like they aren't gonna get these big cards, these big events to keep growing as a brand and a promotion. Sure, they definitely have success in their own kind of niche and have a community that is able to build a little bit and still support some of the fighters there, but it's nothing that can really have mainstream attention like the prime card we saw, KSI versus Tommy Fury and Logan Paul versus Dylan Dennis, which was massive, and now there's just little hopes of that ever being surpassed. especially without KSI.
Yeah, it seems like that whole business model just doesn't really make sense, and it kind of gets exposed with the fact that without KSI, there's really not much there. There's not much to promote. There's not a lot of backing with huge name influencers trying to get in the ring. Sure, if they had guys like Logan Paul getting in the ring still, if they had even that Tommy Fury versus Darren Till fight, that wouldn't be massive, but it would be something to just get people going. But since KSI has been out of the game, they haven't really put on any big fights. They had a Slim versus Gibb in Qatar card. That was their only big pay-per-view show. Who knows how well that really did without KSI there and without the backing of that huge name to carry it, because a lot of these guys have a big name, but are people so interested in seeing them fight, and are they proven sellers? Not really. With KSI, it feels like for me, he should probably just retire from boxing. He's doing great outside of it. He has the sidemen, he has the music, he has other goals there. What's the point of boxing if you know you're not going to fight Jake Paul? Unless you can get that Jake Paul fight, then sure, have the big fights, have the big events that you were interested in and you care for and you want to do. But other than that, why take on the Slim and Anthony Taylors? Why take on the Dylan Dennises? Why have these warm-up fights? Just, I get it to take off ring rust, but if you're still training, if you're still in the gym, you just fought like a year and a half ago. It's not like you've been out the game for so many years. If he is to come back, it should be in big fights. It should be against the likes of either Tommy Fury or Jake Paul, maybe Darren Till. I don't know if that's really smart, because that's kind of a high risk, not too much reward fight for KSI in my opinion. So what's the point of boxing if he can't get a Jake Paul fight? What's the point of continuing to do this, continuing to go through training camps and just this cycle repeating over and over again, to where there's mid matchmaking and no one's really interested, and then a pullout happens, and then a fight gets rescheduled, and an event gets pushed back, and this just keeps happening again and again and again. Replacements come in, this and that. It's just a whole mess of a situation that Misfits has kind of been riddled with since the start. We're not trying to go after Misfits because they've done a good job doing what they can. And if you're in KSI's position, it doesn't really make sense to keep going through this again and again and again if it's not going to have that huge payoff, especially if you're not going to make it to the ring as a whole. It's been a year of him trying to make a return, and then him getting ill, him getting injured, him just not being able to make it to the ring. Is that because of his training and how grueling he's taken it? We saw in that lead up to Tommy Fury how much he was really getting pushed in camp, to the point where he was on the borderline of just passing out due to just exhaustion in training. If you're training that hard and you're going that crazy, even when you're sick especially, you're gonna get injured, you're gonna have issues. It seems like that's kind of been in the way of KSI. Also, his technique has been criticized, and people say that's why he's getting injured, that's why he can't make it to the ring, because of the way he's punching. He had a lot of hand injuries, and he's talking about how his right hand is now not even as strong as his left hand, which is crazy because he's right-handed. Just a whole mess of a situation when it comes to his boxing career, and I don't see what's the point of continuing to do this at this point.
Yeah, I think KSI as well is just kind of sick of being criticized for every little move made in his boxing career, whether it stems from not getting that Jake Paul fight and the negotiations from both sides, and now more recently when it comes for him being heavily criticized for some of the different matches that are being made for him, like him originally being matched up against a retired soccer player, Wayne Bridge, who had never had real combat sports experience at all, and that was deemed a tune-up fight. He was getting bashed non-stop online, and then even the Dylan Dennis announcement, which was to replace that Wayne Bridge fight, he was getting criticized non-stop as well originally, and I feel like that's also taken a toll on KSI a bit. He's kind of sick of hearing all the complaints with every little decision he makes, and as well, it's not like it's fully on him. Part of that is his team as well, and who they deem is right for him to fight, of course, because they want him to have that tune-up fight again. Also, it's interesting to say, what is he really tuning up for then if the Jake Paul fight is not happening? Who is he really going to get ready for? What is the point of him having these whatever fights that are kind of just filler if there's no better fight in the future that is confirmed and is going to be made? And is it even worth his time then to do that instead of just being retired and enjoying his life outside of that, doing his other ventures, being successful with Prime, with the Sidemen, with whatever else he's doing that right now he has more passion towards? Or even if the Jake Paul fight is not the ultimate fight, at least have a big fight that fans could get excited for in the future, in the pipeline for him to get ready for then. But right now it seems like there's just no real scope of what's next. There's no mega fight in mind for him, nothing even against a high level combat sports athlete. The only ones that he was mentioning that they reached out to were the likes of Tony Ferguson, Donald Cerrone, MMA guys who are very far retired and are not even in the mix anymore. And it's also in a way hypocritical because he was criticizing Jake Paul for taking these fights against these old MMA fighters, and yet he reached out to them and wanted to do the same thing. So it just seems like there's been a lot of different issues with KSI's boxing career, how it's been handled, and honestly, if he decides that retirement is the best choice as of right now, I wouldn't blame him at all. And honestly, I think that's the best option unless there's 100% guaranteed that he could fight Jake Paul within the next year or two. But let us know your thoughts down below on KSI's future in boxing and if he should retire. And if you want to see more about the YouTube boxing landscape, click the video on the screen of the night Jake Paul got humbled.